A couple of weeks ago, we talked about Darth Maul making an appearance in George Lucas's Sequel Trilogy. Long story short, it was a total show. George Lucas, even at the height of the extended universe, always marched to his own beat and picked and chose what he wanted, and when it came to Darth Maul, his appearance would have contradicted not one or two, but four separate deaths he had. Well, how about George's main protagonist, Luke Skywalker? Would his story have been any better?
Who's scruffy looking?
Before we go any further, and before you go down in the comments and say,
"Oh my god, talking with my Hans, how could you spread these rumors? None of them are any true."
I will counter that by saying, actually, these George Lucas story treatment leaks are about as official as you might get. Most of what I'm about to say came from Paul Duncan, the author of the Star Wars Archives 1977 to 1983, and more recently, the Star Wars Archives 1999 to 2005. Paul is an accomplished author and historian, and both of these books are Lucasfilm certified. In his latest installment, Duncan recalls an interview he had with George Lucas about his own sequel trilogy plans, in which Leia becomes the chosen one after the fall of the Empire, and we see Luke as her mentor in learning in the Force. Would she have faced off with the new ultimate bad guy, Darth Maul? Well, that's yet to be known, but I'm certain we would have seen a lot more time with Jedi Leia training with her brother. I love Jedi Leia. I know it contradicts the established canon of the universe, but I just feel like it's the natural progression of things. I feel like when she found out she had Luke's power and it would help her help more people, then of course she would want to try and learn it. Seeing her and Luke having a little sparring match in the Rise of Skywalker flashback is one of my favorite moments from the whole saga, and I can't wait to find out more about her time as a Jedi apprentice. So to hear that her and Luke were set to have some time together in the George Lucas version of the sequel trilogy, that makes me happy. What makes me not as happy, though, is Luke's Jedi Academy being part of that same sequel trilogy. Right off the bat, having the Academy in the movies would have, unlike Darth Maul's appearance, completely disenfranchised a whole slew of books and EU material that would have undoubtedly contradicted what would have happened in the movies. Let me scroll through just the books that take place after Return of the Jedi and point out a few that might have been contradicted that you might know. How about the beloved X-Wing books? They could possibly be retconned. How about the Thrawn trilogy? Ever heard of that one? I, Jedi, no doubt that would have been overrun. And depending on how far the trilogy went into the future, the new Jedi Order books would have undoubtedly been referred to as useless. But I suppose if you chose to believe the galaxy was big enough, you could maybe make a story that didn't step on any toes of the EU. I can assure you that George Lucas had no such care, but if we want to pretend he did, he would have had to pull off a shot harder than blowing up the Death Star. What he couldn't have avoided, though, was this. In order to restart the Jedi Order, George had Luke recruit 50 to 100 survivors of Order 66 to his cause.
What?
I said that in the Darth Maul video, I hate the term plot hole. Now, I'm not a huge fan of the term plot hole. I think it's pretty much a garbage term now that people throw around when a scene doesn't make any sense to them. But this is a real plot hole. There has always been survivors of Order 66, and mathematically, out of the thousands and thousands of Jedi during the Clone Wars, it makes sense that the Empire in no way could track down all of them. But that doesn't mean I have to agree with it. I think you just have to be careful before you start throwing 50 to 100 Jedi survivors out there into the wild. Just as an example, don't you think that the Alliance probably could have used 50 to 100 Jedi at the Battle of Hoth?
I can really use 50 to 100 Jedi right now!
Or what about 50 to 100 Jedi to storm the second Death Star and help take out the Emperor?
I don't know, that might just be me, though.
I'm a big believer in this line from Return of the Jedi.
You, when gone am I, the last of the Jedi will you be?
I think it's an incredibly powerful moment and really sets the stakes for Luke before he heads off to face the Emperor and his father for the last time. Essentially, Yoda tells Luke with his dying words that if he fails this time, then the entire Jedi Order fails. If you start the next trilogy with, psych, there were actually 50 to 100 Jedi survivors of Order 66 and they're all helping out now, they were just busy ignoring the whole Empire versus Rebels conflict, it totally trashes that weight of Return of the Jedi and the other original trilogy story beats that included the Jedi. And now, like I said, I don't think that Luke's story in George's sequel trilogy is all bad. Him training Leia to reach her full potential as a Jedi is really cool. George also said that Luke was still supposed to be the wise Obi-Wan Yoda figure in his sequels, just like the current sequels, which is kind of perfect. And Luke still dies in one of the last 2 episodes of the trilogy, which I also think is a super important story moment for the other surviving members of the timeline. Despite those things completely undermining decades of publications in the EU, I still think those elements are good. But beyond trashing an EU that he cared very little for, undercutting your own trilogy and a very impactful moment of that trilogy seems immensely irresponsible. As always, I'd love to know your thoughts. What do you think of George's notes on Luke Skywalker for his sequel trilogy? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Are you somewhere in between? Let me know. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.